Hey guys, it's David with Ultimate Survival Tips, back with Ethan Becker, my new buddy, here at the K-Bar booth, and this is just so cool. Like, he doesn't seem like he's in any hurry to do anything, so we're just like hanging out here and doing a whole bunch of videos. We're gonna look at some knives on steroids next, so he's gonna tell us about some cool knives, and these just really caught my eye because these guys are beastie blades. So Ethan, tell us what you're excited about here.
Well, this is a reintroduction of a knife I designed when I worked with Camillus.
Okay.
And they made the Pilot Survival Knife, and they actually asked me to do two blades. They asked me to design two blades rather than just stuff. I took them and told them that's what I wanted them to make.
Okay.
And they wanted a modernization of the old K-Bar. This was a replacement for the Pilot Survival Knife, which they sold a lot of. They wanted me to maintain pretty much the same package, and they wanted it lighter than the BK2 because it's a pilot knife. We went down to a 5/32 blade thickness, and
to cut some weight.
To cut weight.
Okay.
And it also is slicey. Any knife is a compromise between a cold chisel and a razor blade.
Right.
And trying to pick the right angles for whatever you're designing it for. And a Pilot Survival Knife is mostly a bushcraft knife. And yeah, you got to be able to stick somebody with it in an emergency. And yes, you have to do a little bit of prying with it. Certainly you can do more prying with this than you can with the original Pilot Survival Knife. So I put a pommel which can be used as a breaker. It's not designed as a hammer. People say, well, you can drive in a tent peg.
Yeah.
What happens when you miss?
You bust your hand.
You bust your hand.
I've done that on video a few times.
Yeah. So the thing to do is to cut a club and use that to beat the tent peg in with.
Yes.
So, but you can use it as either a headache maker or you can use it to break glass or whatever.
And the handle is very, very similar to the BK2. Right?
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's a little thinner because the steel.
I'm intimidated with that.
Oh,
we're gonna move over here a little bit.
It's thinner because the blade's a little thinner.
Move closer.
And people will say, "Oh, it feels better in my hand," which means that they have a slightly smaller hand,
yeah.
and it does feel better in a smaller hand. But as all of my knives, including the machete that I designed, I try to get the edge to go right back as close to the forefinger as possible. The reason for that is that this part of the blade is where you do most of your field crafting. It's right in there. The thumb's right on top. It's a direct line down, so you get the maximum amount of pressure.
Yep. So, no, I wondered about that. I mean, because you have this notch. I mean, that wouldn't be considered a choil, really.
Yeah, it is.
It is just a dinky choil.
It's just I mean, I will occasionally say that you can, if you're trying to get the bark off, you can run it around and help it, but that's BS. It's there because I like a little choil there.
Okay. What, in your opinion, what is the purpose of a choil?
All right, I don't put choils in.
Okay.
There's one knife and two knives in my line that have a choil, and they were both designed by somebody else. And it's a fashion statement. Okay. I mean, some people really like them. Some people like to get out and risk cutting the hell out of their forefinger.
Yeah.
And I don't. I mean, I want that thing back here. I don't want to be fixing one of my own bleeding wounds anywhere.
Yeah.
So, and that gives you, if you have a choil, let's say you have an inch of choil, you've lost an inch of sharp edge. I'd rather have, if I don't have a good way of sharpening the knife, and I've used up this sharp part of the blade, I want to be able to move out here and use that part, and to lose that important inch right back here just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, really good point. So you got a clip point here, right?
No, this is a semi-clip.
Semi, okay.
Right. And that's a fashion statement.
Okay. You're big into fashion.
Boy.
And yes. I love the shirt. It works.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's finish up on the BK10.
All right.
Let's talk about the steel and the coating. I'm really interested in this coating. And anything else you want to talk about?
Okay.
Next
Steel
12
is
seconds.
a 1095 Chrovan, and that's 1095 with the addition of chromium and vanadium,
Okay.
which helps to tighten up the grain structure, and a tight grain is a good grain. There's a heat treat protocol that they use at K-Bar, which is really nice. I mean, I'm not a metallurgist. I don't pretend to be a metallurgist, and I'm not going to go there because I would get it wrong. But the end result is that the stuff is very nearly bulletproof. It's a word of wisdom, and this came from Kephart, who is probably one of the finest outdoor and survive. I mean, if you want to learn how to survive in the woods and all the little things, he wrote in the late 18 and early 1900s, Camping and Woodcraft by Horace Kephart. It's one of the best books you can own. And he says, whatever you do, don't chop into a hemlock knot because they have a very high silica content, and it's like chopping into hardened steel. And I didn't know about it until years and years later. I'm reading, oh, well, Horace had this problem in 1898, you know.
So what's the moral of the story?
If you got to do something, and it's especially if it's a situation where it's life-threatening, and you got to do it, do it. But other than that, pay attention to what your gear is well within the envelope to do. If you have a very knotty piece of wood, don't baton through it with anything that has a thin edge, because it'll get twisted in a couple of different directions. And then once it's already stressed and in there, and it gets hit again, it's likely to blow up.
So let's wrap up with the BK10. Can you just talk about the finish? I think that's where we're at. Yeah.
Well, the finish is this is I call it industrial grade elephant snot.
Okay.
But it's a resin powder coating, and this is fairly rough, rougher than the previous finish we used. It's tougher. But what I like to do is take a little bit of 400 grit and just knock the finish off a little bit. But it's a very tough coating. And this is an interesting thing. People are so scared of rust. Okay? When I first started buying knives, nobody bought stainless steel knives because there weren't very many, and they were really expensive. You know, I've got knives that are 100 years old that are nothing but bare early 1095. Yeah, they got a couple of pits in them, but it certainly doesn't hurt anything. They still cut. They still cut fine.
So, just general maintenance, since it's not a stainless steel, what do you recommend for like any of these knives?
Once the finish wears off, a little mineral oil. Okay, Vaseline.
So we've just taken a look at the BK10 and talked about a ton of other cool things, and we're going to come back and look at the BK3.
All right.
Is that good?
We can
Still got time? All right.
Sure.
All right. Awesome. For your convenience, I've included links to all the gear that we've talked about and parts 1 and 3 of my interview with the great Ethan Becker in the video description on YouTube. Just click the Show More tab under this video. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And for more gear reviews, survival tips, and survival news, check out ultimatesurvivaltips.com. While you're there, grab our monthly survival e-mag, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter to get the latest news and be the first to hear about the great gear giveaway contests we have planned. Okay, this is David. I hope to see you on the other side, and remember, be prepared because you never know.